Hi, welcome back to the bookshelf of timeless classics from the Daily Better, a channel dedicated to sharing personal growth insights through great books. There's a strange story behind a certain book. When it was first published, no one paid it any attention. In fact, the author had to pay out of his own pocket just to get it printed. But 20 years later, that very same book suddenly sold nearly 35 million copies and made a leap into becoming one of the world's best-selling titles. The book I'm talking about is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. He's an American entrepreneur, speaker, and renowned author, and this book has been hailed by the media as a starting point for mastering the journey to wealth. In the book, the poor dad is Kiyosaki's biological father. He was a university professor with a stable income, but his life was weighed down by debt. The rich dad, on the other hand, was the father of Kiyosaki's friend, Mike. He hadn't even finished high school before entering the real world, yet he managed to build a billion-dollar financial empire and became Kiyosaki's role model. From the lives of these two father figures, Kiyosaki uncovered the deeper reasons behind the divide between the rich and the poor. Through vivid and compelling stories, he reveals the hidden rules that govern the world of money. Kiyosaki wrote in the book that the reason someone remains poor isn't about how much money they can make, but rather about how they think and act. Without mastering the basic logic of wealth, a person is likely to spend their whole life working for someone else. And it's true, if we can't break free from the mindset of the poor, then no matter how hard we try, we'll always remain stuck in poverty. Today, I want to share something with you titled, "If You Don't Change These Mindsets, No Matter How Hard You Try, You'll Still Stay Poor," a message drawn from the world-renowned book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So, let's take a moment and listen together. The Endless Rat Race Trap. At the beginning of the book, Kiyosaki tells a fascinating childhood story. When he was just 9 years old, he went to work at Rich Dad's supermarket, earning 10 cents an hour. But to his surprise, Rich Dad turned him down and said, "If I give you the wage you're asking for, you'll become trapped here, chained to this store for that small amount, spending your whole life living paycheck to paycheck." This story mirrors what happens to most people. We often get stuck in a fixed, repetitive cycle, waking up, going to work, waiting for payday, paying the bills, and then doing it all over again. Kiyosaki called this pattern the endless rat race trap. Like a mouse on a spinning wheel, we run as fast as we can, the cage clattering with noise, but the next morning, we wake up still stuck in the same place. These people only see their paycheck. They believe that if they earn a little more, they can buy more things and finally be happy. But in reality, they can't see any opportunity to become truly wealthy beyond their job, caught in a never-ending loop of busyness. And worse, they don't even realize they need to seek change. Back to Kiyosaki's job at the supermarket, Rich Dad not only refused to raise his pay, but even made him work without pay. That forced him to look for a breakthrough from within his current circumstances. Kiyosaki returned to the store with a fire inside him. He began observing and thinking deeply. He soon realized that the comic books in the store weren't selling at all. They were eventually being sold off as scrap. So he decided to spend all his savings to buy hundreds of these comic books and opened a reading room in his garage. With that little formula, he earned his first small profit by renting out those books. In life, how many of us are trapped in that same rat race without even knowing it? Many are locked in that cage, completely unaware. We become so drained we no longer have time to think, just living like survival machines, working only for money. But those who constantly chase money often fail at making it. That's why, to escape the cage, we must break the cycle just as Kiyosaki once did. You need to use the time you're running to pause, to reflect, and to figure out how to break free from the endless race. Blindly following a fixed mindset. In psychology, there's a concept known as the social clock. It refers to the timeline society sets for when certain things should happen in your life. This idea closely mirrors the mindset of the poor dad, a belief deeply rooted in his thinking: study hard, get into a prestigious university, land a good job, and work until retirement. Kiyosaki grew up following that social clock, but as time went on, he began to feel something was off. He watched his peers graduate, get married, buy a house with a mortgage. Then came children, which meant more spending, and soon after, credit cards. On the surface, it looked like they had it all: big houses, nice cars, stable lives. But in reality, they had little to no savings. Every day, they stretched themselves thin, hustling for extra income just to cover expenses that exceeded their limits. And when misfortune struck, they were completely powerless, unable to cope, unprepared for life's curveballs. The author even witnessed a friend who, after being laid off, brought his entire family, old and young, to plead with the boss for mercy. Even his own poor dad had faced unemployment during an economic crisis, unable to find any way to make ends meet. That's why Kiyosaki chose to follow Rich Dad's advice: let go of the so-called stable job that simply follows the crowd, and say goodbye to the survival method of clinging to one fixed profession. Kiyosaki expanded his reach into many fields: accounting, law, auditing. He worked as a waiter, a construction worker, a salesperson, and interned at major companies while studying the market. Eventually, he founded a real estate investment company and made his first major financial breakthrough. Rich Dad once said, "No matter what profession you choose, always keep your mind open." What's more frightening than having your mindset frozen in place? The greatest danger in life is racing full speed down a single road. And the one thing we must avoid is living and working based on herd mentality. That's why, only by breaking free from this rigid way of thinking can we ever truly reach wealth. Short-sighted thinking keeps us from seeing the bigger picture. In his book, Kiyosaki tells the story of a female journalist friend. One day, she came to him, frustrated. She told him that while her articles were well received by readers, the books she poured her heart and soul into simply didn't sell. She felt underappreciated, stuck in a staff writer position at a publishing house, barely getting by with her modest paycheck and far from achieving financial freedom. Kiyosaki suggested she learn more about marketing and sales, but to his surprise, she reacted with irritation. She snapped back, saying, "Don't confuse me with a salesperson," and insisted she'd never allow herself to do something as simple as selling. Their conversation ended on an awkward note. Kiyosaki, however, felt it was such a shame. If she could just let go of her narrow view of professional identity and master the mechanics of the market, her income wouldn't have to be limited to what she made from writing alone. He went on to advise that we should think of our careers like a net, one that needs to be woven strategically and spread wide. Take Kiyosaki himself as an example. When he was a sailor, he studied international trade. After joining the Marine Corps, he learned leadership and military strategy, and during his speaking tours, he built a personal brand. Every step Kiyosaki took was like a chess move in the game of his career. Each skill was a strand in the network leading to wealth and prosperity. And only by expanding and tightly weaving that net could the flow of money begin to pour in like a stream. You see, family background, talent, even luck, these are helpful advantages when it comes to making money. But if we cling to short-term thinking, narrow views, and rigid mindsets, these blessings become meaningless. In fact, they turn into obstacles that block your financial flow. Lift your gaze. Look at the big picture. Let your thinking evolve into a broad, strategic mindset, and only then can you truly step into abundance. Without strategic thinking, hard work becomes useless. A well-known American economist once revealed a painful truth about modern society. He said, "It's understandable that the rich don't want to change. But what's truly alarming is that the poor often crave stability just as much, and resist change even more." In the book, Kiyosaki tells of a friend who worked 3 jobs at once to put his 4 children through school. He was exhausted, Overwhelmed and desperate, yet no matter how hard he worked, he still couldn't save enough for their college tuition. Eventually, he turned to Kiyosaki for help, saying he felt like he was dying from fatigue. Kiyosaki suggested he quit those time-consuming jobs and instead use that time to learn about investing specifically, buying small apartments at a low price and selling them for profit. Sure enough, once this friend opened himself to change, he transformed into a savvy investor. He left behind the struggle of earning with sweat and toil and finally experienced the joy of making money with his mind. Kiyosaki believes money is an idea. If you want to earn more, you must first change how you think. Instead of urging people to blindly quit their jobs in search of quick riches, he encourages us to adopt a mindset of financial freedom. Wealth cannot be achieved through mechanical labor alone. It must be pursued through learning, reflection, and intelligent action. It's not that poor people aren't hardworking, it's that they often lack strategic thinking. They cling to the belief that diligence alone will one day bring success, so they endure hardship in their current situation rather than stepping into new, unfamiliar territory. Many choose the safety of repetitive work over the uncertainty of new knowledge and untested skills. As people often say, we may spend our lives building something, stacking bricks around ourselves one by one, only to realize that our own efforts have quietly formed a wall, closing us in and cutting off our way forward. Truly successful people don't just bury themselves in tasks. They seek fresh experiences, embrace new thinking, and push for breakthroughs. As the rich dad said in the book, job security is not everything. Constant thinking is. The self-depleting mindset, why it robs us of action. In his book, Kiyosaki shares a parable about a chicken on a farm. While the other animals were basking in the sunlight, this one chicken stayed inside its coop, running in circles and shouting, "The sky is falling! The sky is falling!" According to Kiyosaki, many of us are just like that chicken, constantly caught up in worry and anxiety. And as a result, we miss out on countless opportunities. One day, Kiyosaki and a friend were driving past a gas station when they saw fuel prices had jumped 15%. His friend immediately became agitated, anxious, and launched into a long analysis of why oil prices were rising. He feared that an economic collapse was near, that the world was heading for chaos. Kiyosaki, on the other hand, acknowledged the seriousness of the situation, but he didn't just talk about it. He took action. That same day, he bought a 65% stake in a small oil company. 3 months later, they passed by the same gas station again. By then, Kiyosaki had made a handsome profit as the company's stock rose, while his friend's financial situation had worsened significantly. The reason? His friend remained paralyzed by fear and endless worry. He couldn't focus, couldn't act, and his money slipped away. A self-depleting mindset is truly a forbidden path to wealth. We tend to panic at the slightest external disruption. In moments of crisis, we fall into fear, even scaring ourselves with worst-case scenarios. Just like Kiyosaki's poor dad, who was constantly afraid of failure, afraid of loss, and in the end, all he could say was, "I can't." In contrast, the rich dad didn't overthink, he simply acted. He moved forward with purpose, aiming directly at his goals. Former AB chairman Percy Barnevik once said, "Success is 5% strategy and 95% execution." The truth is, the universe doesn't reward what you want, only what you do. Always remember this: thinking is just the start, only action brings answers. The adding wood to the fire paradox. In his book, Kiyosaki talks about an interesting paradox, the adding wood to the fire paradox. Picture this. A man sits alone on a freezing night, holding a pile of firewood, yelling at the fireplace. "Once you warm me up, I'll give you more wood." But as we all know, the fire will never burn unless he puts the wood in first. In real life, many people fall into this exact trap. They want to become rich, but their mindset is always focused on, what do I want? rarely stopping to ask, what do others need? In the book, both the poor dad and the rich dad are kind, generous men, but they differ greatly in one crucial way. The poor dad puts himself first. He helps others only when he has enough to spare. Meanwhile, the rich dad puts others first and firmly believes in the principle of mutual benefit. If you want something, you must give something first. Even when the rich dad wasn't earning much, he still contributed to charity on time. Even during times of loss, he prioritized the well-being of his partners. Over time, he became more respected. His relationships expanded, and so did his career. In contrast, the poor dad's path grew narrower and more lonely. After losing his job, he had no one to turn to. Unfortunately, many people in the real world resemble the poor dad. When it comes to benefits, they always put themselves first. When entering any collaboration, their instinct is to maximize their gain before considering others. But if we don't develop a mindset of generosity, if we keep living in the adding wood to the fire paradox, we may earn a bit of money, but will never reach true wealth. Building wealth is much like becoming a better person. It's a journey of giving first and receiving later. These 6 lessons I've shared come from my own reflections after reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Honestly, the book brought Kiyosaki a lot of criticism and backlash because he dared to expose the harsh truths of how the poor think. But time is the fairest judge. Over the past 20 years, this book has proven that no matter how hard you work, if you still think like a poor person, you'll never become truly wealthy. And thanks to this book, many have transitioned into becoming a rich dad themselves. Kiyosaki's financial wisdom has since been recognized and respected more widely. By the time you finish this book, you'll realize the real purpose of Rich Dad, Poor Dad is to wake us up not to work for money. True wealth is never money, it's our mindset. The best investment isn't in the market, it's in ourselves. In both career and life, the only way to go from poor to rich is through growth in mindset and awareness. So here's my wish for you. May you wield the power of mindset like a lever and use it to change your life. Thank you for listening to The Daily Better, a channel dedicated to sharing personal growth insights through great books. If you found today's video helpful, please share it with someone who might need it. Support us by clicking like, subscribing, and turning on the notification bell so you don't miss our weekly uploads. And if you have any thoughts or feelings to share, drop them in the comments below. Thank you, goodbye, and see you in the next video.